Pokémon, one of the most recognizable franchises of all time, a franchise that generated video games, card games, anime, movies, toys, and so much more. Today, however, we are focusing only on the video games, more specifically the mainline ones. From 1996 to 2019, the Pokémon mainline games finally went from our handheld consoles to our home consoles. This transition really hyped up fans, making them wonder how big and glorious the next entry to the franchise could be, since the Switch already proved its power with games like Breath of the Wild. So, with that said, did Pokémon Sword and Shield live up to the hype? Hell no! GameFreak disappointed the fans by delivering a game with less than half of the Pokédex, bad textures, like for example, you do have some good textures in the game if you look at, like I don't know, maybe the characters or even the Pokemon designs, but if you look at the trees, you'll get a great example of bad textures. Even early MMOs in the early 2000s don't have like trees like that. Like, what the fuck, GameFreak? You could have done like better trees overall in the game and it would look a lot better. Other than that, it has like terrible attack animations, and even some of the animations look just perfectly wrong in cutscenes. Like for example, if you're playing Pokémon Sword and Shield in the later part of the game, you will find like Zacian or Zamazenta looking like a fucking smooth criminal. Look, I could see it all day here pointing out the game's problems, but today we're going to see how Pokémon started, how we got here, and what can we expect for the future of the games. Going a few years back to 1996, the year I was born, we got Pokémon Red and Blue. The idea for the Pokémon franchise came from the mind of Satoshi Tajiri and his fondness of catching insects in his early childhood. Who would have guessed, am I right? The franchise started off in the original Game Boy by having two different versions of the game. So, with this, you could only complete your Pokédex if you only traded from one version to the other. In total, you'd have 151 Pokémons, but as I said, you'd have to trade some of the Pokémons from Pokémon Red to Blue and Blue to Red. So with this, you could only complete the Pokédex if you traded with your friends that had the other version of the game, or either you had two Game Boys, one link cable in the two versions of the game, and you sold your ass to Nintendo and GameFreak. With all seriousness, the idea of having to trade made the community come together as a whole, and Pokémon became a way to create new friendships and to help the others to finish their decks. Besides all the good stuff in the game, it wasn't perfect. It did have some bugs, like for example the Missigno, where you could use it to exploit the game and make you have like a measurable amount of items that you couldn't either way. By telling that, you could make the game so much easier for you. You know what I'm talking about. After the huge success of the first two games in the West, they made one more game based on the first generation, Pokémon Yellow. That version of the game was based off the anime, so you'd start off with Pikachu and you could collect the other three starters, things that you could not do on the other two versions of the game. From that point forward, Pokémon has established itself as a franchise. In Japan, the sales were crazy and the West was even bigger. So, it was pretty likely to have a sequel, right? And it did. In 2000s and 2001 in the West, Pokémon Gold and Silver released for the Game Boy Color. These games expand on the original cast of Pokémon by bringing 100 Pokémon more, creating a day-night cycle, having a new region, Johto, breeding, and two new Pokémon types, Steel and Dark. Besides that, you could do one thing that you couldn't on the other future games. You could travel back to Kanto, the first region of Pokémon. With this, you could beat 8 gyms in Johto and 8 gyms in Kanto, beat the Elite Four, and you could also beat, in the end of the game, the real ending of the game, the previous character from the first game, Red. With this, the game was a success, and a third game was bound to happen, with Pokémon Crystal. This added a new way to catch the legendary dogs by making it less of a roaming legendary and more of a static one due to the nature of the story in itself. Besides that, they also added the first battle tower known to a Pokémon game. Few more years had passed. Pokémon Gold and Silver and also Crystal made great sales. And with this, a third generation was about to happen. In 2003, Pokémon Ruby and Sapphire hit the Nintendo handhelds one more time. This time on the new console, Game Boy Advance. This game brought enhanced graphics, more Pokémon, 135 to be more specific, a whole new region of the Pokémon world, Hoenn, the only one you could visit in this game, because as I said, only Gold and Silver had the opportunity to go back to a previous region. You had new special abilities, new beauty contests, 2-on-2 battles, and secret bases. The concept of the secret base was quite fun, because it was a part of the game where you could show off to your friends all the items you've collected in the game. So this was a pretty big deal, because you could show how big your dick is by showing what you've collected thus far. But with all the good came the bad. This game didn't have the day and night cycle due to battery draining issues, and a lot of Pokémon were uncatchables in either of the versions. So you and your friends had the previous games in the franchise, or the next would have a big fucking void. Doesn't that sound familiar, Mr. Sword and Shield, with your 400 Pokémons out of a fucking 1000? Well, besides that, you did have the enhanced version Emerald in 2004 of the game, and also the remix of Red and Blue. I mean, Red and Green, because we never got Pokémon's Green in the West in 1996. Not confusing at all. Am I right, GameFreak? This added some features of the previous GBA games and also the Sebi Islands, so you got a little more story and fun out of the Kanto region. After all that, in the DS in 2007, Pokémon Diamond and Pearl hit the West and it came with better graphics, more Pokémon. Well shit, by about now you know what happens, right? Basically the same old with some sprinkles of creativity. With that said, what was different in this game, you'd have like Wi-Fi connectivity and the restricted move classification being its high note. And in 2009, the enhanced Platinum version came out with some improvements on the gameplay and the story. And that's basically the 4th generation. Oh, I'm forgetting, you would also have like Pokemon Heart Gold and Soul Silver, the remix of the Pokemon Gold and Silver of Gen 2. And that was kinda sick. But besides that, it was nothing to write home about. Then, in 2010, something magical happened. The generation of controversy and garbage Pokemon designs, no pun intended. Gen 5 hit us still in the DS era with Pokemon Black and White. And although some of the designs were trashy as fuck, the story was good for a Pokemon game. It also had real-time seasons, rotation battles, triple battles, Unova Championship, goddammit, you name it! And the sequels in 2012 only expanded the story even more and brought this improvement to the overall games. Also, this was the first time a Pokemon game had a real direct sequel. Nowadays, people are getting over the bad the game had, and really appreciating what the good the game had, because, to be honest, this might be one of the best Pokemon generations ever, having a lot of content to explore and also a lot of Pokemon to catch. In my opinion, this is one of the best generations, if not the best generation of Pokemon, and I truly recommend you guys play it and have fun and enjoy a really good Pokemon game. After 2012, 2013 brought us the Gen 6 on the 3DS, being the first fully 3D game, so to speak, with fairy-type Pokemons, a new region, more Pokemons to catch, new challenges in the game, horde encounters, and character customization. Besides that, the game was on the easier side, and in 2014 we got a remix of Ruby and Sapphire that added a little more variety to the original games, and fans rejoiced by seeing Hoenn in 3D and experiencing the fun they had back in 2004. Gen 6, in my opinion, was really good for a franchise because it brought Pokemon to a 3D world. But besides that, it didn't have like a lot of content for the player. It didn't have like Mega Evolutions that I forgot to mention, but other than that, it was pretty bland and easy. Shortly after, in 2016, we got Sun and Moon, and in 2017, just a year after, Ultra Sun and Moon. The games had the new Z-move gimmick, new Pokemon forms, the Alola forms, new Pokemon overall, a new region based on Hawaii, Alola, and 3DS graphics. So basically, it wasn't that bad, right? Well, it wouldn't be that bad if the original game, Sun and Moon, did have a lot of content in the later parts in the game. but in reality it had a huge lack of content. Therefore, they made in 2017 the Ultra Sun and Moon games to compensate the lack it had on the latter parts of the game. So by saying that, if you bought the Ultra Moon or Ultra Sun games, you would have overall a better experience of the game and a more complete story. So Sun and Moon wasn't like a very worthwhile game. Last but not least, 2019, the age of the first home console Pokémon game, Sword and Shield. What was supposed to be a huge turning page for the franchise was so underwhelming for most people that still cannot see the good the game brought. Okay, like, Dynamax is kinda dumb, but overall the graphics are not that bad. Yeah, some trees look like they were brought off from a really old game, and some animations are subpar overall, but there are other cool ideas in the game. You got the cool wild areas, where you could see Pokemon out in the wild and experience what would have been Pokemon back in 1996 in its earlier vision. Problem was, Dex was cut more than half, sloppy animations and some of the textures look like straight ass. I get it. Also, if you do want the better version of the game, you have to pay 30 more euros, and that's a stretch. I'll give you my honest opinion on this one. I did play the DLC of the game, and let me tell you this, the game is so much better if you play it fully and then experience the DLC. The DLC brought really good content, the game looks way better overall, you have more Pokemon to catch, and I think this was the original vision for the Pokémon Sword and Shield. So with that said, GameFreak did drop the ball, right? They had everything to make this the best Pokémon ever and failed. Or did they? Were the sales that bad? Was the game no fun at all? Is GameFreak going to destroy themselves with the next few games? Well, let's find out. I'll go briefly on this part, I promise. Developing a game is not an easy job by any means, and it can get even harder if you are starting off development for a brand new console. If we see the previous entries, we can easily see that most of the times the first game on the console was good, but overall, the second entry on the same console was better and sturdier overall. That is because of experience. Do you think that after what they have done wrong in Sword and Shield, they will let it happen all over again on the next game after they had more experience working for this hardware? I don't think so. Think it like this. Going from the 3DS to the Switch was a big leap of hardware, mainly because they worked for handhelds for over 2 decades. That is more than enough time for you to get way too comfortable working a certain way and underestimating the job at hand at creating a whole new experience on a home console. They only finished development on Sun and Moon 2 in 2017, and even then they were bringing new updates until 2019 to that game while making a new one. Besides that, they also did the Let's Go games prior to 2019, so that means most of the development time for Sword and Shield were divided with other developments as side projects. With that said, making a whole new game with maybe let's say 3 years in the best scenario for a new console is not an easy task. I think they did learn from their mistakes and they won't let it happen again, at least to the scale of this last entry. Also, you could see the vision they had with the game initially, like I said, with the expansions of Isle of Armor and the Crown Tundra DLC. It was supposed to be closer to that from the start, I believe. Well, shit. If you haven't clicked off already, welcome. This will be the bread and potatoes of this video, because numbers, my friend, they don't lie. So, by collecting all the data I could about the sales, this is what I got for the mainline Pokemon games without any kind of remakes whatsoever. But tell me first, how bad do you think the sales were for Pokémon Sword and Shield? Really, just take a second to think it off, and then tell me, are you ready to see the results? There they are. How close were you with your guess, huh? One of the best Pokémon mainline games in the last decade at least. Shocked? I am not. It's the first home console mainline Pokémon after all. This was supposed to be a huge hit and people were really excited, so the sales would be high, no? But what if we combine the mainline Pokemon games without the remakes, now with the remakes. There you go. Of course, it's not one of the best sellers of all time, it's one of the worst in fact. I'm not counting the Let's Go games because I don't think they are quite the standard for a mainline game. But what if we see the generations combined without the remakes? That could make a difference, no? Isn't that a fucking shocker? More than Gen 6 and almost as good as the Gen 3 sales. And you know what's funny? This generation isn't even over yet. It might get to the same sales as Gen 3 without the remakes. And what would happen if we got the remakes of Gen 4 in the Switch? That would make it potentially one of the best selling generations ever? Let's find out. So here comes only the remake sales overall. As you can see, remake wise in the old fashioned mainline game style, sales only improve with time. And with Gen 4 I believe it will be no different. And it might even beat the Gen 3 remake sales. But let's assume in the worst case scenario it only gets the same number as Gen 3. That's almost 14.5 million games sold. If we add it to the base sales of Sword and Shield, that's almost 34.5 million units sold for the generation, and that would make it the second best generation ever sold in the mainline franchise, even beating the Gen 2 games in the Game Boy Color. Well, with all those scenarios explored, this is my verdict. I think Pokemon is in a really good place, and the sales back it up. I honestly think the next mainline game will be a Gen 4 remake, and it will be the living proof that if you give time and experience to the devs, they can deliver a way more polished game than we got with Sword and Shield. With all that said, I think GameFreak will bring a banger of a remake for Gen 4 and Gen 8. Overall, will go down as one of the top 3 at least best-selling generations for the franchise. I hope I shine some light to some of the issues GameFreak faced and the current state of the Pokemon mainline games well enough for you to trust that the future is bright for Pokemon and we will get better products from GameFreak very soon. With that said, thank you so much for watching and I hope I changed your mind. If I didn't, well, maybe GameFreak will change your mind soon, or maybe you will continue buying games from a developer you don't believe in and still get disappointed. Either way, I hope you had fun with this video and I hope you will have fun with Pokemon in the future. See ya!